hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Crossbeats Production.
Welcome back, you're here with Nate28 and this is Crossbeats Production. So I want to take you guys through one of my mastered tracks and take you through the whole process of how I did it from start to finish. Running you through the plugins and just running you through a few ideas as well as far as what I did, kind of why I did it, and just the key concepts, I guess, to mastering a track. The first thing I kind of look out for when I first get a track of any kind is just to check the meters and see what's going on in the spectral meters and see where things are kind of sitting within that side of things. I don't focus too much on, what it looks like though, as far as the meters. I focus on what it sounds like. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But when I'm sort of with this particular master anyway, when I first got it, I could hear that there was too much low end, and especially in this room that I've got, you can really hear when the low end kind of gets muffled and stuff like that. Because the acoustics in my room aren't the best. They're not terrible, but they're not, 100% the best. I can kind of, because I'm used to it, I can kind of hear where the low end stuff gets messed up. So, what I first did when I first got the mix and kind of listened through it, had a good idea of kind of what I wanted to do. I took mental notes and then started working on it. So basically, the visual things I just wanted to show you as far as visual sense is looking at the peaks of the audio. So if you're looking at these audio peaks, as you can see here, every once in a while there's a few little peaks that kind of pop out, and you want to pay attention to those because at the end, when you put a limiter on your track, that's when that's going to affect it the most. The audio peaks, basically when you're limiting your track, and if you're not aware of limiter and how it works, but basically a limiter will compress your track, pretty much bring in the loud volumes or maximizing it to the most loudness it can get without obviously destroying it. If you're looking at doing that, you can do it. But if you're trying to use a limiter to maximize the volume, there's certain things that you want to pay attention to. So first off, one would be your mono field. So anything in the mono side of things, you want to pay attention to how loud that is. On your meters, that's kind of why I have the meters up here and why I have two of them going on at once as well. Basically, they're on my main out bus, and I just set meters up there. I don't do anything else on that side of things. You can master in the Studio One project page. I don't care to do it. It doesn't really bother me that way. But anyway, on the meters, I kind of pay attention to the mono first and see where that level is at, because mono is always usually louder than the stereo, or the sides I should say, on the mix. So the things I did with the mono side of things is, first off, I got an EQ, and I've done a lot of stuff with this EQ all in stereo, just to get the mix sitting right in stereo though. So the first thing I did was I put this matching function on, which I've shown you in another video that I did on my channel, but this is a really good key feature on this plugin, that you can use pink noise, or you can use a 6 dB guide or a reference track if you wanted to kind of work around the EQ on your track. What I did is use pink noise, because pink noise always seems to work really well when you're looking at mastering or mixing or anything like that. But the reference guide is the line here. That's what it uses as a reference for pink noise. So basically what I did, I captured the track, looked at it, reviewed it, and kind of worked around what it looked like as far as visual sense, and then I started working on what it sounded like. So once you hit capture on here, it basically captures the track. Then you can later on obviously release that, and it automatically adjusts an EQ to what it believes the pink noise level should be at for the EQ there. So basically it removed a lot of the low end, which is exactly what I was trying to do, because there was just a little bit too much low end to be in the final master on this track. And it then increased some of the top end, which I sort of removed some of that myself because I didn't need that much top end. The other thing I did then from there is, after the stereo EQ kind of adjusted itself on the matching EQ, I should say, I did a little bit of stuff here myself. So I just removed out some of this stuff with a brick wall at 23 Hertz, which is stuff you probably will never ever hear unless you're really paying attention and you've got a sub that you want to listen to it on. But in a general sense, you're never going to hear that out in the real world. So I removed a lot of that 23 below. That stuff that's just not going to be any use to the mix and the master in the long run. So that's the next thing I did. The top as well, I removed out anything above 16.4, I should say. So all the really high-end stuff that is kind of sometimes at the 17.2 ear piercing stuff that's up there, for dogs at least. The dogs will hear it, but you probably won't need it on your master, so I removed that out. So basically I used a high pass and a low pass filter to remove out some of the main stuff that wasn't required in the final, mix down. So that's the first EQ that I put on there. The next thing was stereo, so I should say the sides. So basically I use a separate EQ for the sides. You can do mid-side on the other EQ, I just didn't want to do it. So I brought up a separate EQ for the sides. Pretty much all I used this EQ was to remove out anything that was in the low area, so anywhere where the kick and stuff like that would be sitting in the kick and bass and things of that nature. Removing all of that, and then pretty much that filter wasn't on actually, neither was that, and neither was that. So basically all of that stuff that's sitting on the low with the sides, so you might get some reverb on a kick and stuff like that sits down there that you just don't want in there, and it does help when it comes down to the phase of the final master as well. I'll show you the difference in a minute when I play the audio to you, but first off I just want to explain it. So that's what I did to remove the sides out up to 149 kilohertz. That's the EQ there. Next one was a soft clip. So I used this as a soft clipping feature. Nothing else is being used on this compressor other than the soft clip. So that helps control the peaks, which I talked about as well at the start here. So these peaks that you can see across here, I'll just expand this a bit. So the peaks that you can see across here that go all across the top here, there's kind of some that stick out and stuff like that. And you can see how it's kind of had a bit of a haircut on this one, and it's more or less all level. There's nothing else that sticks out. And mainly that's for the end result when I put the limiter on there, because it needs to be able to get the full maximum amount of volume without, altering the way that the limiter is going to be affecting the audio. So those peaks would definitely, because it's so dynamic, and I mean, I'm going for the loudest mix possible on this particular track, and I'll play it when I show you, but if it's a dynamic track, you obviously don't want to give it this kind of style of limiting, but for anything that's electronic music and, EDM or stuff like that, that's the kind of limiting that you're probably going to end up doing. And you need to do that to be able to get it to that maximum volume. And that's, I guess, where the loudness was and all that stuff comes into play. I don't want to get involved with that on this particular video, but that's what I did. So I used the soft clipper to do that, and that's how that works. So next port of call was the mid-side processing that I did with Mushroom Pusher. So I'll just show you that and give you an explanation of it. I've already shown you guys how to do this on your own in my previous video, so if you watch that you'll know exactly what I've done. So I've got the mix tool here, which puts it into mid-side mode. It's not turned on, but that's what it does, so you can see there. And then the next thing there is the splitter, so I put a splitter on here, which then I changed it to channel split. Mushroom Pusher on the center channel, which I clipped again. I removed probably about 3 dB worth of level, I guess, or maybe even less than that, but I just clipped the audio in the mono channel, so it would make sure that all of the volume I could possibly potentially get was helping me in this regard. So the Mushroom Pusher was basically doing that. So in clipper mode, in mono channel, it was only affecting the mono channel, that was it. And it also, on the peaks here, it also helped me to get the kind of similar levels with my sides and my mono channel. So it gave me roughly about -15, I think it was, or even less than that maybe. But anyway, then I put another mix tool on there to convert it back to the stereo, which it was at. And just as a key note as well, when you do this, it does remove about 6 dB of gain because you're splitting it, and the, I guess, the mono to stereo effect that it has there, it removes 6 dB. So you can increase it this way by putting a gain tool on there, just like I did here. You can see it's got 6 dB of gain, and it's got the mid side back on there, so it splits it back into stereo. So that's one option. Obviously you could do that, or you could put something else on there to increase the volume later on. Next thing I did here was just purely for the sound of this EQ. Nothing was done on it. I didn't remove, boost, or anything like that. I just left it as stock function there, and it was turned on, and that gave me the coloration of that particular EQ, which I seem to like because it just gives you this nice analog sound that you normally wouldn't have unless you had this EQ. So that's what that did. It actually increases the volume by about 1 dB. So I used the gain plugin to remove 1 dB, and I also DC offset, so block the DC offset. So that basically assisted me in removing that extra dB that it gave me, and it also assisted in making sure, I'll just see if I can zoom in to the line here. So just on the corner here, actually I'll go to the end of the track. The DC offset, if you don't understand what that is, it's basically this center line. So the DC is 0 dB line there, and I'll just zoom in on that so you can see it. So basically what that is, it helps you get the 0 dB line completely straight, whereas sometimes for whatever reason, I would assume it's some sort of mathematical issue that occurs, but it sometimes creates a offset of the 0 dB line, which would then you would lose some of your potential headroom that you'd had. So that's what that pretty much does. The next thing there is the SBL Free Ranger, which is quite an interesting plugin. This is the free version of it. So if you're looking at it, it's a passive EQ, and it sounds quite good when you put it on things if you're looking for some smooth analog kind of sound with EQ, at least anyway. What I did here was I boosted some at 40, and that was it. I removed a little tiny bit down at I think it's about 20 hertz from my understanding. I might do another EQ review on this to show you guys the kind of curves that it gives you, because, you know, it's good to see what's going on behind the EQ there. But that's what I've done there with the EQ. Next thing was the stereo meter. So pretty much what I've done with this is width of the low end, so anything below 89 hertz. And I'll play that in just a second. Actually, I'll just show you now so you can see what's going on with that. So just turning this to on, and I'll just show you kind of what's going on. So anything below 90, so you can see pretty much all of the low end here. It's just playing, and it has a little bit of width with the low end, but for the most part, you can see it's going along there, and also on this side here, you can see the meter. But for the most part there, it's kind of all in mono. So if there was a kick in there, I'm sure the kick's completely in mono, so I didn't have to worry about that too much. And because I removed out some of this, the stereos, or the sides I should say, pretty much helped the phase in the end to assist this metering. So basically, that's all I did with that. I pretty much left it down at 96 because I didn't want to go completely mono, because sometimes if you push everything straight into the mono channel, if you push things straight into the mono channel with your mix, you might end up overwhelming certain things in the mix, and then, you know, you got to fight that, and it's just, sometimes it's just too much hassle. So you don't have to always go completely mono on your, you know, your low end there, but it does help to have mono instruments. Say for example your kick, I would always make sure your kick's in mono, unless for whatever reason you're trying to make it sound wide and phasey or whatever. But that's what I did with that. Left this really pretty much as it was, just created a little tiniest bit of width on it with the stereoizer, and reduced some of the top end stuff there just so it wasn't wide. And once I play the two, you know, go between them, A/B, the two tracks, you'll see exactly what's going on. So next thing here, limiter, which a limiter I would recommend if you're looking at a limiter. I'm going to do another video. My next video is going to be about limiters and which limiters I recommend, but this is one of the ones that I use frequently. I also use the Waves L2 and a couple of other limiters as well, but for the most part, the Ozone 7 maximizer / limiter is kind of one of the better ones that I found in my my trek of mastering stuff. And also, I don't want to keep buying, you know, spending more and more money on limiters, but this one just does the job well, and it has 4 different options. So, I mean, you can't really go wrong. It's choosing one of these will work usually on every single track. So that's pretty much the processing there. So let me just show you what it sounds like A/Bing between the two, so you can kind of get an idea, and also pay attention to the meters that are here as well, and this meter up here, because it'll give you an idea of where the correlation is and things like that. So I'll just highlight those while I'm playing it. But let's get straight into what they sound like, because that's why you obviously want to know what they sound like between the two. Let's go. Alright, so basically, as you could see, I tried to level match it as best I could. You know, it's hard to level match exactly because one's got way more peaks than the other. But for the most part, I level matched, and it kind of came close to the same level, except for a few little things going over the top there. But as you could notice, the difference in the level of volume is pretty great compared to, you know, the old versus new. And, you know, there's definitely a loss of dynamics in the mix, but that's something that you just can't help with limiting it to this loudness of volume. And the person who made these tracks, they really wanted these to get as loud as competitive possible, I guess, you know, competitively possible, to get as loud as other mixes that are on the market. So I figured that I'd try to get it as loud as I could without, you know, destroying the dynamics too much. And as you can see there on the meters, I don't know if you were paying attention to those, but on the meters, they kind of didn't lose too much. And especially on this meter here, you can see the dynamics between the two lost about maybe a half or 1.5 dB in dynamics between the two. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the processing between the two mastering before and after that I would show you. As far as the limiting and things like that, it comes down to what you want it to sound like with limiting. You've got to really pay attention to how much you're limiting and kind of what's going on there. But for the most part, I kind of tried to stay at about -2 dB reduction on my limiter and not much more than that. And the reason I was able to achieve that is because I removed some of these peaks out already prior to the limiter. So the limiter didn't have to work as hard, and it was, at the end, able to function and do what it needed to do without having to deal with all those peaks coming through. So if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, also remember to give me a like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, just hit me up with anything you have any questions about. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.